Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today I want to talk about the lie of just work harder. So we're told often under the system, if you're struggling, if things are difficult, that you just need to work harder. The reason that you've not got enough money, not got a house, not in a great financial situation is your own fault, and you can just work harder. You can maybe get another job, find a better job, gain more qualifications, but fundamentally we're told that the problem is you. That if you just worked harder, maybe if you worked a bit smarter, then you'd be in a better position, like the wealthy and successful people, that they're just so wealthy and successful because they work hard. But this is not generally true. And neoliberalism would like us to believe that the atomization of the individual, meaning that, they'd love us to think that it was our fault and it's some sort of personal failing. But the truth is, if work and if hard work really did pay, then we wouldn't see any teachers struggling, nurses, care workers would not struggle, migrant workers working for Uber Eats and delivery driving, taxi drivers, whatnot. Most people work pretty hard, right? Most people, if you're working a full-time job, to be honest, 40 hours a week, personally, I would say that you're working hard. So the issue is not simply people are not working hard enough or people do not want to work. The problem is bigger than that. The problem is systematic. But the fact that it can be pinned on the individual, it's an easy get out for the system. If we can just automatically say, okay, the problem is the individual not working hard enough, then we can absolve any kind of systematic problem or any systematic blame. We don't even need to look at the system, do we? If we say, okay, what's the problem here? Well, it's just you're just lazy. You could get another job, you could get qualified, you could work 50 hours, 60 hours, you could get another job. And if we just keep putting it onto the individual, we don't need to look at the system that creates this scenario whereby you can work full-time, you can work 40 hours, but you're struggling, you can't afford to support your family, or you can't afford even to do what they tell you to do, which is to maybe go and get better qualifications. You can't necessarily afford to do that because of the financialization of the education system. So it's not your fault. If you work full-time, again, in my opinion, if you work full-time, then that should be adequately sufficient, as it was in previous generations, to afford a basic lifestyle. And by a basic lifestyle, I mean, we probably need to establish what does that mean as a society. But for me, you can afford a house, you can afford to take a holiday or two a year, enjoy some life, some leisure time, some activities, right? We're not saying we all want lives of grandiose luxury, but in my eyes, in my book, if you work full-time, 40 hours a week, you're contributing to society. And at the end of the day, you need some incentive and you need some reason for continuing to do that. Otherwise, people aren't going to buy into the system. So this is where I think neoliberalism is going to come unstuck. This is why we will get change in the next 5, 10, 20, certainly 50 years, because this system has run its course. And eventually, if we carry on the same path that we're carrying on, people won't have enough money, we'll see an increase in poverty, and it's just going to lead potentially to civil unrest. And not because of boat people, not because of migrants, because our elites have created a system that does not reward work. And that creates a sense of frustration. Yet in years gone by, decades gone by, previous generations, it was different after World War II. You could work, a single person could work, and that could support a family. And that could afford the life that I spoke about just a minute ago. But, having a house, having a car, taking some holiday, it could afford that lifestyle. But that's increasingly difficult in the modern day economy. And that's just because of how we've structured our economy. We don't reward work anymore. Work does not really pay. Yes, there are anomalies. You're going to get your people that, work in the city, work in finance. You're going to get your podcasters, your celebrities, your sports people, But this cannot happen for everybody. These are anomalies increasingly, particularly for families and people from more working class backgrounds. The opportunities to get the jobs that even afford a middle class lifestyle today decreasing. It's ever smaller and smaller and smaller. And that's, in the UK, we've got quite a big problem of wages being relatively low, very low growth in wages for a long, long time now. And we've had, as I'm sure we're all aware, pretty high levels of inflation, particularly asset inflation. Housing, the big one, is just becoming more and more and more unaffordable for most people. So hard work. Should you work hard? Yeah, you should work hard. Absolutely. I think everyone, you should work hard. Does it make sense to really work super hard in your job, particularly if it's a corporate job? Not particularly. I think those on the left, we need to work hard. We've got to, ultimately fight for the change that we want to see. Are we going to get that in the workplace? Probably not. But like I said, I think, this system, this way of organising and arranging the economy, it's unsustainable fundamentally, which is why we are going to see something different in the coming years. It's on the table right now. There's no firm decisions that have been made as a society. These are debates, conversations, questions that we need to ask, that we need to answer collectively. But I think just ask yourself, does work pay anymore? It's pretty evident, it's pretty clear that it does not. We've seen, inflation slowly erode our buying power for years. We've seen the inflation of houses just become an absolute joke, to the point where lots of people, young people in particular, cannot afford their own homes. We're going to have the situation with the aging population, whereby, formerly kind of middle class families are going to end up having to sell their homes, so their children may get, really little inheritance in the future because parents need to pay for social care and things like this. So yeah, do not feel bad, guys. If you are finding it difficult, don't believe the lie that, you're not working hard enough, or that you're somehow, not valuable as a person, because that's not true. Again, neoliberalism would love to tell us that, our value is tied up in our productivity, and in our kind of economic life and our economic value. But we've all got value. And we didn't write the rules for this economic game. Maybe we thought that we couldn't. But we will do. So don't worry about that. Guys, take care. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.